I had rather an anxious time during the next few days. I remember entertaining as usual, but in a faint-hearted way, sleeping badly, and between times walking up and down Soul Eaters' Island, trying to subdue my pride to a point of confession. Then one afternoon, when I was sitting on the ocean beach watching the surf piling up on the barrier reef, I became aware of a vessel hull down on the horizon. I could hardly believe my eyes. It was like a far hello from a world which I had almost forgotten existed. All through the afternoon she beat steadily to windward, until at dusk she was about 2 miles distant, and I saw that she was one of the small schooners without auxiliary power which were used by Papeete trading companies for collecting copra at the less profitable atolls. All the village came over to Soul Eaters' Island, for the anchorage at this end of the atoll lay just behind it. The schooner was recognized. It was the Potii Ravarava, which visited the atoll about once a year. She entered the pass with the turn of the tide, lighting her way by the fire which was burning in a primitive galley, a tin-lined box half filled with sand. I could see her native skipper at the wheel, a couple of sailors preparing to take in sail, and 2 native women sitting on the poop, with a great large pile of luggage behind them. One of them was Tepera, daughter of Faery, chief of the atoll, who had been sent to Protestant school at Papeete nearly a year ago. The other was Tawara, her aunt, with whom she had been living there. The crowd on the beach waited in deep silence while the schooner anchored and the sails were being furled. I remember that I could hear very plainly the fall-off rumbling of the surf on the windward side of the atoll, and the hissing of frying fish, or whatever it was, a native boy was cooking at the galley fire. Then the small boat was lowered, and the women brought ashore with their luggage. Tepera went at once to her father, and putting her head on his shoulder, began to cry softly. Not a word was spoken. Tavara and Pora, her sister, squatted on their heels close by, their arms around each other, moaning in the same softly audible way. The women then went in turn among all the relatives, having their little cry, while the rest of the village looked on in sympathetic silence. When they had finished, a fire was lit on the beach, and every one gathered around to hear the news and to examine the schooner's cargo, which was being put on shore. More trade goods for Moy Ling, I thought. Remembering my debt, I couldn't summon any great amount of interest in the scene. I was about to return to my house when Faery came bustling up, carrying my sea-chest. "You like this?" he said. What he meant was, "Is this yours?" But for once he misused his English with splendid relevancy. I sat down weakly on the box, holding a letter which he had thrust into my hand. No doubt of it. It was my box, and the letter was addressed to me in Tino's familiar handwriting. It read in part as follows: "We have just met with the Potii Ravarava here at Hao. She is going to Rutiaro within a few weeks, so I'm sending your sea-chest by her. Sorry I left you in the God-forsaken hole, but I was tight that evening and pretty mad at the way you upset my plans with your marble-playing foolishness. Next morning, when I sobered up, I felt like going back for you, but we had fair wind and I had my cargo to think of. The price of copra is on the downgrade, and I've got to get back to Papeete with mine before the bottom falls out of the market. You said once you wanted to see all you could of life in the Paumotus. Well, I guess you'll have your chance at Rutiaro. If I was you, I would come back on the P. Rivera. She only carries 27 tons cargo, so she'll probably go direct to Papeete from there. I am also sending you an empty 10-gallon demijohn. Fill this with water before you leave. If you come back on the P.R. Mitty, her skipper is a good sailor, but all he knows about navigation you could write on a postage stamp. I met him once about 20 miles south of Faery. He was cruising around looking for Antagatu, which was 70 miles to the northeast. Well, he can't miss Tahiti if he gets within 100 miles of it, so you better take a chance and come back with him. But don't forget to carry your own supply of fresh water. Sometimes these little native boats get becalmed, and it's no joke being thirsty at sea. Yours, Tino. P.S. Meaty has a big bunch of letters for you, from your friend Nordhoff. I saw the packet. It looks as though it had been traveling some. Nordhoff, he says, is in Tahiti again. I'll probably see him there, and will tell him to wait for you. Give my regards to all your marble players. Good old Tino. He did me nothing but good turns. Late that night, when the rest of the villagers had crossed the pass, I pried open the lid of the chest, having lost the key, and found my belongings just as I had left them, my camera, my binoculars, and charts. And most important of all, in the bottom of the chest, wrapped in a pair of trousers, my pocketbook. I didn't pay Moy until just before the departure of the schooner, and staged the final episode at an hour when his shop was filled with loungers. I came away with his receipted bill, 120 francs, and the consciousness of having adequately safeguarded tradition. We left Rutiaro the following day. I did not realize until the moment of leave-taking how painful the farewells would be. As soon as they were over, I went on board, crawled into the little cabin, and, despite the cockroaches and copra bugs, remained there until the schooner had left the pass and was well out to sea. After our separation at Papeete, Nordhoff went on to the southwest. He wrote me from an island he called Ahu Ahu, and from there apparently he took passage to Rarotonga, the principal island of the Cook group. Long before the discovery of New Zealand, Rarotonga was the goal of Polynesian mariners from the north and west, fearless explorers, traveling in their double canoes across hundreds of leagues of ocean, guided by sun and stars, some of them arriving at their destination, many others, doubtless, perishing in search of it. From Samoa, in the early centuries of our era, came the Karakana family to reign in Rarotonga down to the present day, and Samoa is believed to have been the principal starting point of the voyagers which peopled the eastern Pacific. In the language of those old-time voyagers, Tonga meant south, and they gave that name to the Friendly Islands. Further to the west and south they came upon the Cook group, in those days no doubt the southernmost ends of the earth, and the high island of this group, the faint blot on the horizon which led the canoes to land, they called Rarotonga under the south. End of chapter 10.